Hey, welcome to Magical Internet Money episode something. And today we're joined by the lovely Valeyo from, from a lot of things. So give us a quick intro.
Yeah, thanks. Super nice to be here. I've been in crypto long enough to remember magic internet money is something else. Yeah, man. Valeyo, you said I do a lot of things. I kind of 90% do one thing, which is Quasar, which is a project that, originated in Cosmos and now is expanding to EVM. Honestly focused on just the next generation of aggregation products. Just like one sentence. But I think what you're referencing is me doing a lot of things is I got an angel collective with a couple buddies called Base DAO, because I believe in being based. And then I advise Union, which I think at this point is a very renowned project. The only advisorship I do, because I'm just a man, there's a limited amount of shit I can do. My brain doesn't fit that many things. So yeah, advising Union, who by the way are doing their ceremony right now, which I think a lot of people have seen on Twitter. So yeah, thanks for the intro and fucking great to see you guys again.
Yeah. I mean, I always love hanging out and talking to you guys. We've met in person quite a few times. I did want to ask you about Union because I've been seeing these tweets like all over the place. I know Carol. I like him with his shirt off. No homo, but he is doing this Union thing. This is going to be
a little bit of homo.
one thing that's part of this broader like chain abstraction layer kind of tech, but it's also very Bera chain aligned. So again, I don't know as much as you do. Can you explain to me what Union is and what they're doing over there and what this whole ceremony thing is?
Yeah, 100%. So I think on the very super fast way of explaining it is honestly it's an interoperability standard, right? It's originated from IBC. They're going to have their own chain, which runs a modified version of Comet BFT, which is used to be called Tendermint, that a lot of people know about. And their goal is to literally just be a co-processor for either token transfers or information transfer, across the board. They're trying to make it as permissionless. I mean, we all know permissionless doesn't exist, so I'd say trust, lowest trust assuming for as many projects as possible. Obviously, they're Barrett chain aligned, but to be fair, they are running a lot of partnerships. So I think their real alignment is just freeing tokens from their grip of being in one ecosystem only.
Can you okay, so you explain that at a medium level. Let's go far left curve all the way down. So they're a bridge kind of.
Union allows chains with ZK to understand that other chain have token and token wants to be moved to original chain.
Is it similar to how IBC does bridging, where it instead of having everything wrapped all over the place, it's kind of like a mint and burn using relayers?
Yes. Yes, it is based on IBC. They've just expanded beyond Cosmos because right now IBC is, only really in the core IBC stack is only Cosmos. I think it's fair to say IBC is expanding outside of Cosmos because of Union. So yeah, it is based on IBC because I think there's been many people that have tried to redesign how to do interoperability, and it always comes back to that's the way to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So you just have to obviously adopt it to other ecosystems. I think the add-on to IBC, which core IBC doesn't have, is that Union uses ZK, right? That's how you kind of advance it outside of Cosmos. They use, I think it's called light client verification, light client ZK, to, for example, allow Ethereum transfers. They have testnet live right now where you can transfer tokens from their Cosmos-based chain using their version of ZK IBC to the Ethereum testnet and back. So yeah, it's kind of sick.
So does this mean... Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, if what happens to these tokens? So they're transferred here and there and everywhere. Are they native or are they Union wrapped?
I don't think there's such a thing as an actually native token if you do any bridging ever, right? Because if it's not from the actual state machine that issued it, it can't really be native. What it can be is the lowest trust assuming bridged version, which is what I would feel comfortable saying that Union's bridged assets are the lowest trust assuming ones. Simply because anyone can run a relayer. So anyone can run a relayer. So essentially you yourself could relay your own tokens using Union. So you don't even have to trust them and keeping their relayers up, for example.
Okay. What does this mean for composability and interoperability? Would people have to select the composability of Union specific tokens, or would it be Union can interact with many types of wrappings, I guess is the word for it?
I think what you're really asking me is if I can slide into Carol's DMs and invite him to the next show, which I can, Stephen. You know,
Okay.
there's easier ways to
Yeah.
ask me that.
I just had
No
some
worries, man.
also
You know, I
when
got you.
airdrop, and yeah, let me ask some more.
Yeah, when
But no, I mean, you know,
airdrop,
as with any bridge, like as with any
FDV
issue, you can always use it for, you know, swaps and such. But I think you should probably have Carol on. This is my immediate show for him.
Definitely. I'm just like there's so much new bridge tech coming out. We've talked to not Layer Zero. They just changed their name to Everclear. There we go. Well, yeah, but Everclear is doing like this weird XERC standard, which is
I met them in Singapore. They do like some version of clearing, which is like actually
clearing layer.
I think I talked with Carol about this, and he said that Union could technically clear like 20 times faster than Everclear, but obviously it's not live yet, so that's just a
Singaporean internet, man.
Everclear is not really exactly a bridging.
It came back.
Am I dropping?
Okay, we kind of missed you on that one.
God damn it. By the way, I'm not in Singapore. I'm in Malaysia in this thing called the Network School by Balaji, which people may have heard online.
Yeah.
So
are you there?
Yeah.
You're there for 3 whole months, right?
Yes. I mean, I'm going to Cosmoverse and probably to DEF CON in between, but yeah. Otherwise, I am here. This is my
amazing. Okay, there was a rumor that you weren't going to Cosmoverse that I heard from someone else, and I was a little upset. But I'm glad you're coming. Is anybody else from the Quasar team coming?
We'll see. We'll see. It hasn't yet been fully decided. Definitely me though. But I think there's a lot of rumors about Cosmos/me because people have misunderstood the word expansion for fuck you all, which is not what we wrote and not what the core of our expansion was. So yeah, I'll be in Cosmos and I'll happily rep it.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, I think like I know a lot about Quasar and a lot about Cosmos, and I actually like kind of have no idea what's going on either. And so, yeah, maybe you could give us a rundown of like what's happening with Quasar, and then maybe we can stop like grilling you and we'll just start.
I'm gonna keep going.
Broader perspectives here.
No, dude, happily. I think so. I don't know if you may have seen my Twitter post yesterday, probably not, but I think it helps to conceptualize how I look at Cosmos, and the way I call it is basically like core Cosmos and non-core Cosmos, which is obviously an arbitrary way of defining it. So people, you know, have their own definitions. What I consider the difference is that core Cosmos is dependent on inside of Cosmos liquidity, and non-core Cosmos just uses the stack. So like what I would define as non-core Cosmos stuff like Union, stuff like Berachain, stuff like Celestia, stuff like DYDX chain. And then what I would consider core Cosmos is like X Kujira Levana, Mars, Neutron, Archway, Cosmos, Atom, us originally, and Osmosis. And the way that I basically try to explain what we're doing with like our expansion is just a very pragmatic approach to liquidity. Because obviously a lot of people have an opinion on like TVL being a vanity metric, right? Because to be fair, it is just half of the equation of what matters, the other one being capital efficiency and usage, right? But it is like a big half of the equation of the actual underlying equation of like, does this matter what we're doing here, right? Like, are you running a corner store in like a village for 1,000 people, or, you know, are you running Macy's on, you know, 57th Avenue in Manhattan, right? So with that in mind, you know, Quasar's product is severely dependent on TVL. Like, it is actually one of the metrics that are very important for us, because the amount of TVL we have is the amount of capital can be allocated. So we are, you know, the entire equation is what we care about. So at the end of the day, what started happening, I think, which I'm not even opinionated in, it's just, I think, a fact that when Terra collapsed, core Cosmos didn't ever really fully recover. I think other projects think about it the same way. I think a lot of projects are not announcing stuff in the same radical way as we did, to be fair. I mean, you know, Polaris by Osmosis being a DEX aggregator outside of Cosmos is a signal, in my opinion, that they're acknowledging the liquidity constraints. I think Kujira and Levana merging on Thorchain, which is also non-core Cosmos in my comparison, is an acknowledgement of liquidity constraints. And obviously our announcement of expanding outside of Cosmos is that as well. So to explain what's happening is, I think there is severe liquidity constraints in Cosmos, especially after Terra collapse. We essentially are in a situation where the majority of our liquidity, that, you know, all the tokens are dependent on USD as a denomination, right, for their value. The ecosystem itself actually doesn't have that much USD anymore, which means that we're kind of in a very fickle situation where liquidity kind of can enter this devil loop down, where like if tokens go down, liquidity goes down because a lot of the liquidity is the tokens, and then you kind of enter that death spiral. Again, it's not opinionated. I don't hate Cosmos. I love the tech. Like, we're using the tech. We continue using the tech. And I didn't start in Cosmos, because of the liquidity, especially considering how long we continued building after Terra collapsed. It's just that for a product, in our opinion, to really have a mass impact on a lot of people, which like fundamentally is what drives me and my team, right? It's like we want to create products that impact as many people as possible. We just see constraints in growth on the Cosmos side. Now, just to finish my monologue, if Cosmos recovers on liquidity, which I don't think is impossible, there's like a lot of teams I'm very bullish on inside of Cosmos, and I know you both are as well. We have our tech ready already, right? It's really just that I think people that don't work in crypto themselves kind of don't consider the metric of allocation of time and effort as a team, right? We are not infinite amounts of people that can deploy infinite amount of things. So when we just think about focus areas of like where are we going to spend time, as of right now, because of liquidity constraints, we see a future in the EVM denominated world, especially, there's also EVM projects that are on Cosmos, and there's also non-core Cosmos projects, which aren't exactly EVM, but from my angle of expansion, we're also, focused on just doing it for liquidity, man. No hate, no ill will, no grenade throwing behind us. Our vaults on Osmosis are still live. We still have, I think, 5 million TVL. Still a thing.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. So you're not spinning down your Cosmos chain and fully becoming an Ethereum L.
No, so the Cosmos chain, okay, to be fair, that's something where I understand a lot of people's confusion because we haven't communicated that a lot yet. But what we've done initially is we did the snapshot for our token, which means that after snapshot date, so anyone watching this right now, do not buy or swap into QSR token, and like also don't sell it because that might make you eligible. Snapshot has happened for all the balances, and we've essentially pulled all liquidity. So effectively, to some degree, Quasar has been taken back private or like pre-token launch. The reason for that is because when we think about the metric of accessibility of an asset, again, not to hate of the ecosystem, but just of the fragmented nature and liquidity in Cosmos, it's been very hard for us to sustain solid DEX liquidity and also have, solid distribution of people being able to get into the Quasar ecosystem with just a DEX deployment on Cosmos. There's obviously projects that have SEX deployments as well, which are not affected in that front, like Osmosis or Cos or Atom. But in our case, that wasn't the case. So the token is gone now, effectively, which allows us to focus on the product, the core product at hand. And we're going to reissue the token next year. We said, I think, Q1, Q2 in the original proposal that passed. So the chain itself is back to 0% inflation because the chain serves the part of co-processing, which is a big part of our LSA narrative, which we don't need to go into today. I think we have a lot of other topics to talk about, but there's a light paper anyone can read. And we're keeping the options flexible of what to do with the chain. Now, do I internally, like when I'm waking up thinking we should be in L2 on Ethereum? Not really, because it doesn't actually solve or serve our product at all. Do I think that there's a possibility of renting security or being in ABS? I think that's possible. I think there's a lot more options than were available when we launched the chain to what you can do with the chain that still qualifies the chain to take the part of being the co-processor that we needed to be.
Oh, that's amazing. So, I think like big picture, I spend a lot of time on like Twitter and in the trenches and like feel like I have like a good understanding of like how people are like looking at these types of decisions. And I tend to like look at them completely different, right? Like I've spent a lot of time with you. I really trust you. I think you and your team are like generally like 20x more intelligent than I am in this space. And so I just like trust the founders, right? And so like it's the same with like, anything Sunny and them are working on over at Osmosis. People are like sit and complain about it online, and I'm just like, that's cool. You're free to get out and do that, but at the same time, like these are people who have a lot deeper understanding of what they're talking about, like multiple faceted reasons why they're making these decisions. And I think it's just one of those things where you just have to take a long time frame and say like, I'm betting on these founders to like shift and move through this space as it like changes because it's so new, and navigate that in a way that, in a couple years we come out and you have put yourself in a position to where investing in that project is profitable.
Yeah. And look, founders are just humans too. And we make mistakes. I think that goes for every human, but I tend to agree with your take that there's just so many facets to decisions that the public usually doesn't see, which, to be fair, we need to improve, because especially crypto itself is such a transparent industry. We should do much better on that front. And I also don't think that people are wrong in voicing their concerns generally, because they're at the end of the day still stakeholders and they're entitled to an opinion. But yeah, I think that there is a lot of nuances to decisions that are generally made that people, if you think long term, you would tend to agree. And if you think short term, you tend to not understand.
Well, let's dive into this a little bit. So one, founder mode is a bit of a meme right now. You are a founder. So what does founder mode mean to you?
Good question. I think on a high level, and probably everyone has heard this before, but there's you can have too many cooks in the kitchen, right? And there's a lot of these kind of words. There's these kind of phrases. There's you can have too many cooks in the kitchen. There's an unopinionated voter. An unopinionated voter is the wrong voter. There's tyranny of the masses, right? There's a lot of thought processes on that front. And I think what founder mode really means is listening to your gut and being hyper focused on the mission at hand. I think that founder mode really means okay, what are you actually trying to do? A founder is not just someone that wakes up, does a day job, and stops it and then does something else. I've subscribed years of my life, and I'm willing to continue to subscribe years of my life to this vision. So I should treat it as a multi-year thing. It's not a thing that ends at 5 p.m. for me, right? It's a thing I think of consistently. So what founder mode means to me is hyper radically thinking about what you think is the best way to get to that mission and doing that. And then obviously at the end of the day, you have to convince people, you have to do sales, you have to do community management, you have to do people management in your company. So, I'm not advocating for a dictatorship with an iron fist. I don't think that's what founder mode is, but it literally means, even though that's also a meme, it means locking in my opinion. What do you guys think?
It's a dictatorship with an iron fist with a velvet glove over it. And then you only take that glove off sometimes.
You have you say I'm a founder, but you have your things too. How do you think about founder mode?
It's not nearly as interesting because most of my success comes from the people around me. There's this guy at jiu-jitsu. There's a guy who, whenever you ask him how he's doing, he'll say, "Feeling blessed and highly favored." And I'm like, that's an awesome way to respond to whenever someone asks you that. And that's just how I feel, right? Blessed and highly favored. So I've fallen into a lot of my own success, and for me, it's always been opportunities arise. People tell you to take them. And then you just take those opportunities and you run with them as fast as possible. I'm not creating new and interesting things really as much as I am just running with opportunities that have been placed in front of me. So creators, totally different realm. But I did want to talk to you about, okay, go ahead. You got something to say.
I just want to quickly say that what's to say that a lot of founders don't feel the same way of us being in a position because of other people. I literally wouldn't sit here if, Polychain, Blockchain Capital didn't put trust into me. I wouldn't sit here if, the team didn't join, if anyone in the team didn't subscribe to the vision and was convinced that this is something that they should also dedicate their life to. Wouldn't be if community members didn't get, convinced by the product and the vision and used Quasar on osmosis and such. I think you have to be very egoistic to not acknowledge that anyone in a very favorable position has been put there by other people.
Right. I will say, so one thing that I've learned going from being an office, cubicle slave to someone who now owns things is that you have to be able to make decisions and stand by them, even if they're bad. Just I'm going to make this decision and we're just going to run with it. And, that's just going to be the decision. You can't wait for other people to make the decision for you because you're literally at the top of the food chain for this company.
I think Farmer agree. Farmer's also a connoisseur of strong men lead good, right? I think, and no one ever said, perfect men need to be leading.
Right.
The focus is always strong. I think, philosophically, it's worthwhile to at least take a minute to think about why we're saying strong men lead good. We say strong because it means convincing. It means you can transfer the energy of conviction to other people. You can inspire. And it doesn't mean that mistakes are not made. It means that you can subscribe to the ideal that this person stands by what they're saying, so you can stand by what they said, because that's a predictable line of thought that you're going to keep following through.
Yeah, a weak man with a good idea is not as good as a strong man with a mediocre idea, because a strong person will actually get it done, whereas a weak person will always be rolled over or steamrolled by.
Now I feel like I need to bench 3 times more. Now I feel inadequate.
Oh, dude, I hit my
Well,
I hit my
I mean, I
PR
think-
recently. I was so stoked. I was so excited
What's
about
it?
it.
What is your
What's
PR?
it?
I'm not gonna
Come
tell you
on.
guys. It's like it's
Come
a
on. Drop the alpha. PRs in the
All right.
chat.
3 plates. I threw 3 plates on both sides, and I was super stoked about it.
For bench?
So
Wait,
it's,
bench press?
that's yeah. So that's 3.
That's 140 kilos. Jesus
I don't know.
315?
Yeah,
That's
I
really
was super
good.
stoked about it.
That's 140 kilos. That's your 40 kilos over what people consider to be like the gold standard bench.
It was well, there was a dad in there, like another dad. So we were talking
You're
about the
getting bulled
storm
up
and
with
being
dad talk?
dads. Exactly, man. The dad talk hyped me up. So he's
Literally-
a big like 40-year-old dad who's got 4 kids. And so I was like, can you spot me? And I was just like so hopped up on the dad juice that I just boom hit it, and I was really stoked.
Dang.
You can bench me twice. You can bench 2
Yeah.
valves. That's
Well,
Well, that
I'll
is
bench you
the real
twice.
goal, right? The goal is you want to get to double your body weight for bench.
Yeah,
Or-
exactly. You want to be double your body weight, which is like absolutely insane. That would be like 400 pounds for me, which
Yeah.
we'll see if that ever happens.
It
But
will
they say
tomorrow.
You peak at 35 years old, so I'm like, oh no, I only got a couple more years, and then it's all done.
Well, that's why you start going and doing like HGH and
I was going to
testosterone,
say once you hit 35,
and then you can be like
you just
Val's
start
age
taking the
again.
drugs.
Yeah,
you just
exactly.
start doing the
It's time for TRT.
exactly. Yeah. So to circle back about steroids, what I wanted to ask is you're one of the few people in the. I mean, this is not true. There's a lot of people in this space, but you don't. I am surrounded by yield farmers, and I love yield farmers because it's what I understand. It's mathematical. It's like go out and make the numbers go really high. You have a philosophical vision of DeFi that, like, for me, 2019 Stephen really vibes with, because like when I talk with these guys all the time, but like when the Canadian truckers had their funds frozen and seized, I was like, oh, I get DeFi now. Like now I understand. This is why you need DeFi. Tell me about your philosophical vision of DeFi and why you think decentralized finance is kind of neat.
Yeah. I'll give a little bit of context. So I studied philosophy, but I dropped out. But my dad released a book about philosophy when I was a kid, so I kind of really grew up with this. And I was born and raised in Germany to ex-Soviet parents, and I realized that like this capitalistic system is not what my parents understand. So I tried to buy Apple stock actually at around 12 years old, and I lied about my age on PayPal in the bank, and it was frozen. I was blocked. I'm blacklisted on PayPal, and I had to pay like a huge fine, or rather my mom. And that really radicalized me when it comes to access to finance. This is, by the way, if you think about Quasar as a product, really, it's about like democratizing access to expertise to some degree. If you think about it, like on a very meta level, that's kind of what we're doing. And so when I think about access to capitalism, I think about like how a Kenyan kid cannot buy Apple stock. I think about how a soy farmer in South America can't, be part of the soy derivatives market that actually dictates the price of his livelihood. I think about how like 2 kids from London, unless they have super rich parents, can just create a hedge fund structure because like the legal fees are just abysmally high. And so let alone someone in Turkey not being able to purchase, or Argentina not being able to purchase a certain amount of dollars because like the government bans them, so they just have to sit on their highly inflationary assets. When I think about DeFi, I don't believe in like the wag me philosophy that like everyone's going to make money, because like that's just not factual. But what I do believe is that we can democratize access to the financial system and democratize ownership of the financial system. And I think those are all the tools that, from a moral philosophical standpoint, I feel like we should focus on giving people, because at that point, it's up to them what they do with it, but they should have it. And most of the world does not even have access to the tools, let alone even if you consider the best highly accessed, financial people, let's say someone on Wall Street, they can't even buy stock in Citadel, which is 50% of the, US stock market, like trillions of dollars of volume, right? So whereas in DeFi, you can have ownership of Uniswap, you can have ownership of Aave, right? You can actually own the market makers to some degree as well. My philosophical approach to DeFi is, I think about the run-on of future, let's say 20 years ahead, 50 years ahead, we see a consistent, and there's a global phenomenon, outreach of government into our lives. Abundantly obvious across the world, especially more abundantly obvious in the digital world, right? We've seen experiments in China where specific provinces or instances where the government has given citizens, like, assigned their money a temporary time. So they basically got a push notification, you can Google this, and said you have 3 months to spend this amount of money or it disappears from your account, to spur the economy after COVID. That already was trial. have, I think, even also in China, but I think China really is a glimpse to the future for many countries in the world, especially, or I think a lot of governments wish to be more like China. You have a different credit rating depending on your social credit score. I mean, sorry, you have a different, you have a different percentage that you pay in fees depending on your social score. And so we've had bank accounts frozen. Obviously, SWIFT, right, is like the sanctions mechanism. By the way, I want to say this very clearly. I align with the Western world politically, and I don't advocate for not having this. But I do think that it showcases that also innocent people can just be hit with a system like this, like a lot of sanctions that hit, let's say, Iran, right? I would assume, just from numbers theory, that there's a non-significant amount of people in Iran that don't love what the government is doing, yet are
not insignificant.
Thanks. Not insignificant number
Non-zero.
of people that higher than one number of people that don't like what the government is doing, but are completely blocked from global finance just because they hold a passport that says Iran. And so my philosophical approach is like, okay, what is the alternative to a dystopian future where the government fucking controls everything? Like, our money is not ours, CBDCs are abundant, like everything is controlled, right? And I only see DeFi being a solution. Now, does that mean that I'm kind of blind to the reality of DeFi right now and like that we are in this growth stage where basically everything gets supplemented? Of course not. I think it's ignorant to believe that you can completely like just stamp out life-changing industries expecting profitability from day one. If you think about one of the most impactful companies no one in the world talks about, called ASML, which, if you don't know about them, but they have created the ultraviolet light machines that are the only machines in the world that can etch chips like CPUs under, I think, 21 nanometers, which is at this point almost all the consumer chips. One company in the Netherlands, and they've spent 20 years of research and billions of dollars just burned to create that product before they ever turn a profit. And I think more prominent examples that people know are Uber and delivery apps. Now, I would argue, if you talk to anyone in the modern world, which apps they love the most, they would say, car sharing apps and delivery apps. But these two apps also needed 10 years on average each to ever turn a profit. Like, Uber just turned a profit for the first time like 2 quarters ago, right? Mm-hmm. And I think we've come to the realization where if you have a foundation to your industry, which is the internet, which means basically unlimited scale to max distribution, you are heavily incentivized to spend a fuck ton of money to get market share and grow. So anyone that says, DeFi is not sustainable, I think doesn't understand that point. Like, yeah, we are in growth mode. We are literally on spending mode. Duh. But you have to spend to get to a point where the chicken egg problem solves itself and then the yields get sustainable. I think, Stephen, I don't need to tell you as a yield farmer, that we are kind of in this trajectory. So do I think philosophically that DeFi is the only way to solve our future in dystopian financial control? Yes, because of that.
The question is, like, how do we stop DeFi and stop crypto more generally into just becoming a more efficient version of the current system? So, of course, like, DeFi has to grow, things will get better, regulations, blah, blah, blah. But like, we are in a space right now where massive parts of the world are geo-blocked from being able to use the apps. We still have like Apple and Google being able to kind of circumvent and choose which applications are available to like most phones in the world, and then there's been a lot of founders that come out and just say like, fuck this, we're not doing it. Like Shane from Stargaze has said, I would rather go to jail than geo-block my website from anyone.
I think
and so like, how does
I know Shane, I love him. Horrible legal defense. Just
yeah, for sure. But like, what I'm saying is like, if the vision that you're talking about may require some founders to come out and just say like, hey, we're not doing this. Like, we are actually building a new system. We are actually not going to comply with any of your rules that we think are unfair to society.
Well, I think there is a middle ground, which is that you do the geo-block, but you don't do the KYC. Because any savvy user can get around the geo-block. Not saying that you should do that.
Under Val's vision, this isn't something for savvy users, right? Under Val's vision of a decentralized future, it's for a kid in Kenya who picks up a cell phone for the very first time and turns it on and is able to like access the full scope of the financial system in 10 minutes and have like good educational videos in their language or AI teaching them how to use all of these things and how to understand historical data. So like right now we're coming to a point where any company who wants to be legally sound, now they have to go to Switzerland and set up a $200,000 account and have attorneys and do everything the right way. So right now there is a barrier to becoming a leader in decentralized finance. And there are also a lot of barriers into real world users using some of these applications. So my question is, how do we fight against that? And how do we get to a place where, how do we get to your vision of a decentralized future?
You need the rise of a noble aristocracy. Incredibly wealthy group of people who create these decentralized systems with immutable smart contracts that can be used by anybody from anywhere all the time.
Yeah. We need Elon to build it into Twitter.
I just dropped out, so I'm not sure I'm speaking into someone's mic. But I mean, first things first, we have a Swiss association. And like, I'm 25 and I have more legal teams than I had ex-girlfriends. And that's not the flex. That's not the flex that people think it is. Like, that's like a ridiculous statement. That goes to show the state of our industry right now. I think there's a lot of facets to your question. Do I think when I scroll Twitter and I see these founders kind of saying like, fuck it, do I think like, that's sick, that's cool, I wish, like, yeah, I mean, obviously to some degree, I think there's a lot of, just chadness in a statement like this. But I also, again, from a pragmatic standpoint, I think the real way it will go and it should go, think about it this way. How long can you really be a renegade or like bully people with like, a revolver in the Wild West before you get put into your place, right? There's a limit to this. The way that you actually make things legit is you create products and you create apps and like infrastructure that's used by so many people in the world that you somewhat become irreplaceable or a core structure of day-to-day life, at which point you have a better leveraged position from your side to negotiate with, say, governments, but also the governments have a higher incentive in accommodating you. It's basic math in negotiations. So you want to come from a position of strength. So yeah, of course, I love Shane. He's a Chad, and I think that's a Chad sentence to make, but I also think that NFTs as an industry are the least scrutinized when it comes to geo blocks. And I think if we're thinking about, the more scrutinized versions, like you said, geo blocks are avoidable, Stephen, but for example, we use other providers that detect VPNs, for example, right? Just because I see the way that we change this industry in building products in the legal way until the legal way becomes the way we want to as well. Does that make sense? And so I think that we kind of just keep growing and keep building ways the proper way so that then when it comes to a point of negotiation, we can come with a position of strength. And I think it's happening already, to be fair, right? You've seen the political landscape change in the US a little bit. You've seen UAE adopting like super pro crypto things, which means people are flocking there. Even you guys mentioning the Swiss structure, like that's Switzerland making a stance for, you can do this properly. And like, if you want to, come over here, give us your money. Not the first time they said that, and like do it properly. And so I don't think the way necessarily for our industry to change and to have an impact is to just say, fuck the laws, because that's certainly not how we build a reputation of being an industry of the future. But it is certainly being naughty, which is, I think, the same that tech has always done.
So you talked about politics. I think it'd be cool if you could tell the story of how you got Donald Trump almost elected this summer. And I honestly, so I'm being serious here. I think that you are the sole reason the Ethereum ETF passed 6 months more quickly than everyone else thought it would. And I can defend that. I truly believe that.
Don't say this too loud, because the price movement, I don't think people are going to like knowing that was me, respectfully. But
yeah, but it was.
Yeah, dude, sure. I mean, yeah, I'll talk about this. Trump issued these NFTs last year of him in like, just, different patriotic stances with a significantly more ripped body than he actually has. I thought it was so hilarious. Like I just looked at them and I really, had to chuckle hard. I was in a FaceTime call with a buddy and I was like, should I buy them? Like, yeah, I mean, honestly, like that's a very expensive joke, but I thought someone's gonna buy them for more at the worst case, and at the best case, the dinner tickets and I come in handy. Like that was my thought. I was like, at the worst case, I have funny pictures. At the realistic worst case, I'll be able to sell them for probably the money I bought them for. And like at the best case, the dinner tickets are gonna come in handy. That was like my thought. So I bought them. I cried tears. I wish I had, the video doesn't exist, but I wish I had it. We were in a video call. And so initially the dinner was supposed to be in Q3. I think someone severely fucked up on the Trump side because like it could have been expected that that's a bad time to do the dinner. So they moved the day to May, at which point I had a conflict. I was on a boys trip, just leave it like that. And so I had like 2 months to figure out what to do with my dinner tickets. And I was under the impression that they should be used for something. I didn't want to sell them. I thought that was like a just really cheap thing to do. And I also couldn't attend. So I thought, okay, who should I who is like someone that I might be able to get into reach that could get real value from this ticket, like something that's gonna, help crypto. And so I came to the conclusion to, ask Ryan. I met Ryan at a private blockchain capital dinner, last year, the year prior in Austin. We exchanged some drunk words. For privacy reasons, I'll just leave him like that, but it was a really fun and pleasant conversation. And so, I kind of pinged him and I was like, yo, this is probably the most random DM you're ever going to get in your entire life. But like, do you want to go to a dinner with Trump? I can't go and you can go for free, which like quite literally is a scam message. Like there's probably some scammer in this world who, like, here's the story, like, oh yeah, good idea. Like, yeah, I'll that's a copy paste message I can send to a couple voters. And so, he was obviously very hesitant in the beginning. Like, let's be real. You get a message like that, it makes no sense. But thankfully, we had mutual contact, so they, vouched for my legitimacy. And I had a lot of conversations with him. We were kind of brainstorming what this means. Like, can he attend? Can he not? Because I couldn't go, so we had to. I was DMing the Trump team and talking to them about, like, there's this guy coming who's not me, like, using my ticket. Like, don't fucking leave him at the door. Like, he's a big deal in crypto. Like, fucking let him in, please. And there was also, like, the form the Secret Service made everybody fill out, which, like, I had to fill out from my side, but like it had very sensitive information. So I was in a video call with Ryan, and like it was an ordeal. Let's just say it was an actual ordeal to make this happen. But he confirmed, it happened. I was in the European time zone. So, I woke up after everything happened to my phone completely obliterating itself and blowing up. And that's when I realized that, the messages to the Trump team about him coming actually got to the point where, like, they realized, oh, we should, probably send him on stage. And that I think that's kind of where the story becomes public and everyone knows about it. And yeah, that's kind of how that happened. I guess right moment, right time.
Yeah, it's totally crazy. And then Ryan sort of had this like meteoric rise within like the American right. And then I don't know what he's doing now. He's sort of like dropped off Twitter and decide, I don't know if he's going to try to like join that team or be on that cabinet.
Val is the reason why he no longer works at Masari.
Yes. And why ETH ETF got approved. It's like seriously like the butterfly effect. Like a butterfly beats his wings in Malaysia, and a German teenager beats his wings in Europe and changes the entire political landscape in the US and the world.
No, I got this was very cute, but Coindesk wrote an article about this entire thing, and they sent me a T-shirt which has a little rock on the front and a big boulder on the back. It was like when a pebble turns to a boulder. Like, it's very
cool.
Oh, that's cool.
By the Coindesk team, yeah. But again, it's right moment, right time. I think I'm not Ryan's parents, right? So like people ask me sometimes, like, "Yo, what's happening with Ryan?" Like, dude, he's like his own guy. Like, I sent him to dinner. I obviously have some nice chats with him. I respect him a lot. I think personally, and obviously, I have no say in American politics because I'm European. So like, I want to preface this, right? It's your election, and I'm really not trying to fuck with it. From my outside opinion looking in, I think that his methods are obviously very rough, and very kind of, not everybody likes them. And obviously, he sees Twitter and it seems like he's schizophrenic. I don't think he is, by the way. But the thing that I really care about is intentions. And there's like, a long topic about when I studied philosophy was like, do means justify the end? Like, is the intention more important or the end? Like, if someone wanted to do something good and it turns bad, is that better than someone wanting to actually do something bad, but it accidentally turning good? And, it's a philosophical question, so there isn't really like an answer to that. But I myself decided I care about people's intentions because I think that that's the nature of them. That's the essence of their soul. And whether or not that, turns good or bad, like the essence of their soul is what I care about. And, I had a profound, long conversation with him that really impacted me to life. Like I really want to say the reason that he came to mind to me was because I really felt like, he deserves it. Like, he should go. So I think judging people, everyone has their own viewpoint, and just saying, oh, I don't like it because he's doing this thing, not like I would. It's fucking bullshit. like his intentions is what I care about, and he truly cares. Like he genuinely, in the bottom of his heart, is not doing this for personal gain, for his own money, for his political agenda. He does this because he believes that this is the best method to push crypto in the US. And I think you always need a hound on your side. And like he is doing a really good job at being the hound. And behind the scenes, I can just kind of, not to go into too much details again for him, but like he's involved in like a lot of legit, what the public would consider legit ways to improve crypto that are beyond just fucking tweeting. So I respect him. I love him. I'm sometimes in contact with him. I respect him, giving me time sometimes and just like us being in contact. I wish him success in like his endeavors. Obviously, the Messari thing, I'm a bit sorry about. I obviously, I have to also say, I don't know if he was booted out or if it was his decision. There's a rumor that he was booted out. I honestly think he decided himself, at least the way that I've got to, know his character. I think he decided that's just better for the business, so he's going to leave. But I think he's going to do great, and I think he's going to keep pushing crypto in your country forward, and it's going to be good to all your American citizens.
Yeah, I think. Sorry, you cut out there for a second. I think so. I mean, I hope so. He's he definitely is a bulldog. He has bulldog energy. You can tell that he's incredibly passionate, and we need people like that. Certainly in this space. Now, you said that you care more about intentions than consequences. I don't want to do a huge deep dive into philosophy, but that does make my brain tickle a little bit. This is like the age-old utilitarianism versus deontology. So like the basic idea for utilitarianism is that you want to maximize what they call the good. And many people in the past have tried to maximize the good with absolutely horrible means. Literally pick any bad guy from history, and they were probably utilitarian. What's that?
Or any religion.
No. Utilitarianism tries to maximize like utils, which is just like the good.
No.
Right. And so deontology is the opposite of that. They typically say, intention matters, and you should have some rules to express those intentions. Now, do you have so you said your dad wrote a philosophical book. Was it ethics, or what was the foundation of that? What was it on?
So it's in Russian, and I think generally in Russian philosophy, it's a lot about like anecdotes, just like to tickle your brain philosophy. So that's kind of how I would define it. Like,
do you know any of the anecdotes? Any brain ticklers? Man didn't even read his own dad's book. Oof! As a dad, that hurts.
No, I read it, but it's hard to translate the essence when it's in Russian.
Sure. Okay.
Like the essence, but I would say one of them has to do with like the dance of life. The translation is really hard, but it has to do about how, a dancer, a ballroom dancers.
Right, your dad was a dancer.
Exactly. And you have a couple, and it just has to do with like the man pushes, gives the energy, like drives, but the woman makes sure that you don't run into a wall. Mm-hmm. And it's like, it's written in like a Russian anecdote way, where you just kind of like, it tickles your brain to thinking about yin and yang, or like how different parts of nature work together. So it's, I honestly, what I should really do in the next, as a next project after Quasar, whenever that's going to be, is translate that book into like its essence. But yeah, I would say, obviously every bad guy always started. So when I say, good intentions, I mean this obviously from my moral standpoint. That's kind of how I cheat the system, right? Like I judge it based from my moral standpoint. Ryan Johnson was here in the network school, and he's known for Blueprint, like his way of life to extend his lifespan. And he started a conversation here. I think it's public in the sense that I think he said this publicly, but he initially starts his presentations or his conversations with people with the question, which, by the way, I'll ask both of you right now. If you imagine there was an algorithm that could perfectly dictate your life for you to have 100%, literally, like that's the imagination, like the mental model, 100% satisfaction, happiness, fulfillment, spiritual needs are met, you sleep well, right? Your friends are taken care of, you're nurtured, your soul is, 100% across all of that. The only condition being that you have to do what the algorithm says. Would you subscribe to the algorithm?
You want to go first, or do you want me to go first?
I think no for me.
Well, you gotta unpack that, man. Why? Why not?
Well, I don't know. I'm not ready for this thought experiment, I guess, this early in the morning. At first, I think I was on board. And I think also like it would change with my age a little bit, right? I think maybe I have 20 more years of making my own mistakes and living with regret and living with times that I was like maybe angry when I shouldn't have been, or selfish when I shouldn't have been, or all these things that we consider negative moral things that we shouldn't be doing. So I think I would say no, I'm fiercely independent. I fiercely for me, the purpose of life is having as many possible experiences as you can have. Like so I want to go to like every country in the world. I want to try a lot of drugs. I want to like hike difficult mountains. I want to have like every potential possible experience. And of course I'm skewed towards, I would rather those experiences be things that are positive or like difficult and then enriching, and then like, but are generally like positive for everyone else's life as well. It's sort of some like ripple or shock in the universe that adds some sort of tiny point of positivity out into the world that maybe somehow affects other people around me, you know? And so I think living with our mistakes, like being able to have time in life when you can be quiet, when you're not busy, when you're not distracted, and you can just sit and look at all the mistakes that you've made, look at all the problems in your life and just stare directly at them, just sit with them, I think is been one of the most important practices for me in life. And so I think that's just part of that life experience. So I guess I'd rather make the mistakes and have to sit with them than have an algorithm have me purely happy. But I'm super happy to turn that over to a computer or an algorithm, you know, maybe when I turn like 70 or something and I'm tired of traveling.
Okay. What would you, Steve?
So yeah, my short answer is we've seen it done before, which is so I'm a Christian. There's no surprise there, right? There are many people in the Bible who believe in God but don't believe God. Right. So even though they know God is like perfect, God knows exactly what's right for you, God will only lead you in the right way, they hear God and they're like, I can't do that. You know, one of my favorite jokes is there's a guy who goes hiking and he gets to the top and he falls and he grabs on the ledge. And he's like, oh, someone help me, please. Anyone, God, save me. I need help. And then the clouds part and a bird comes by and a rainbow goes over and a huge voice from above says, I hear you, my son. Let go and I will catch you. And he looks around, he looks down and he's like, is there anyone else? Because it's terrifying, right? So the algorithm would probably tell you to do things that you don't want to do. For me, I'm seeing the algorithm as effectively God. God will tell you, people think God is like, quit your job and then I'll make sure that you're financially fine and you'll get a job and you'll make 10,000 times as much as you're making now. But really, God is like, quit your job and that's it, right? So it's terrifying. And most people can't commit to things like that. And having the knowledge that, or faith that this is going to be the best thing for you, without a doubt, it could still be absolutely terrifying. So the short answer, yeah, absolutely. I mean, when I pray as a Christian, as someone with faith, I think I already have that. The Bible is the algorithm. It is the blueprint. It tells you exactly what to do to live the most fulfilling, the most enriching, the best possible life you could ever live. And whenever I do the things I'm supposed to do, it happens like clockwork. But it's hard. It's really, really difficult, nearly impossible. And no one will ever believe you. So, you know, make it mass produced and offer it to everybody. Sure, it's already offered to everybody and it is mass produced, but people just want the computer to do it for them.
Okay. So I love this because it's kind of the full spectrum. And so
one more thing. Oh, King Solomon. So King Solomon, what did he ask for? Does anyone know?
Wives?
He had a lot of those. Yeah. No.
Wisdom.
So exactly. Wisdom. He said, I don't want money. I don't want power. I want wisdom. This is David's son. And if you look at his life, after he asked for that, his life was miserable. He started worshiping other gods. He had like infinite concubines and wives. Like he explored everything. And so this kind of goes to what Farmer was saying, which is in order to get that wisdom, and this is my own sort of exegesis or theory, is that in order to get the wisdom that God promised him, he had to experience everything. And so he experienced like the most depraved aspects of humanity. And a lot of like magicians and people who do the dark arts are obsessed with Solomon and Solomon's ring and all that kind of stuff, because like he literally was supposed to be the wisest person. But if you look at his life, you would say, well, how is he wise? Because all his life is just a series of mess ups or a series of very extreme experiences. And I think, well, maybe that's why he was so wise, because he experienced everything. And so, you know, you're saying, would you want an algorithm that allows you to have that kind of stuff? It would take a lot.
Yeah. So okay. So this is perfectly to be wrapped up. So Danny on the no side because you want to do your own mistakes. Stephen on the yes side in the sense that you're effectively already doing this with God. Now I also am Christian. I also believe in God, but I'm actually on the no side, and I'll explain why very quickly. And then that goes back to the philosophy of like, outcome versus intention. A lot of people, by the way, in the workshop said yes, but the majority said no. And the angle of why I said no is because I believe self-determination is more important than quality of outcome. I value my self-determination more than the quality of outcome, which somewhat is the middle between you two. It isn't a no. I don't want an algorithm to lead me. But the way that I am trying to get better at practicing my Christianity, which I'm very far from perfect, is that I want to be self-determined on walking the path to get better at it, right? If I could like sign a paper right now and I would have zero struggle and I could suddenly like adopt that, I wouldn't do that. Like I want to go through that journey because I want to be self-determined in that. I see more value in this, even if the outcome might be less perfect than me signing the paper and becoming the perfect Christian tomorrow, right? And so I think this goes to the point of like self-determination being doing what you think is right versus perfect outcome. And that's why I fundamentally believe that, the intention is more important than the outcome, because I think in the long run, outcomes cannot be predominantly bad if intentions are predominantly good, but outcomes can be predominantly bad if intentions are predominantly bad. And that's to wrap up that philosophical segment. That's why I believe that.
We'll end there. Or we could go on for another 3 hours. If I had more hours, I would definitely bake into this because there's so much to philosophically unpack with that last statement. But I'll let everyone else in the comments decide whether or not you agree with Valeyo's last statement. And would you take that bet? Or would you take that agreement? Thank you guys all for watching. And do the stuff you're supposed to do when you watch podcasts. I don't know what they are. This is a new podcast. Thank you for watching Magical Internet Money and have a wonderful rest of your day.